Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen? Your boy Beaky here with the Untitled Game Show. New episodes every single Friday of the video podcast. But for you guys right now, we have a discussion and my thoughts overall of Season 3 of House of Cards, the Netflix original series. There will be spoilers. If you haven't watched Season 3 yet, please take the time to go ahead and go check that out right now. Now let's jump into the season and what I thought overall, a little bit of a review as well. Alright guys, so first thing first, the season started out very slow. The very first episode was intensely about Doug and his recovery. So if you guys don't know who Doug is, Doug was basically Frank's main man from last episode, but he got hit over the head by Rachel in the last episode and she took his car. And now we find out, well, Doug is actually alive and he's kind of have some brain damage. He has some emotional swings and he's trying to recover in a recovery center and he wants to go back to work. And I think this episode, the first episode of Season 3, really was trying to force everybody to think about, do we really want to see Doug get back into office? Is he capable of actually helping out Frank Underwood at this point? Now, I thought Frank was about to take Doug back because Doug is really useful to Frank. But unfortunately, throughout basically 90% of the season, Frank does not call Doug back at all. And I think he really did suffer because of this. And I think this season had two main things overall that were important. Doug, he was the winning thing over the whole entire season. And marriage. The marriage between, well, Claire and Frank Underwood. The president at the moment. The sit-in president because he has to get reelected. And that's what the whole entire season was about. Now, in between this, there was some conflicts between Russia and Frank Underwood, and that's a part of the stuff I really don't like. The whole thing about gay rights, they had mixed that into, like, current events about gay rights. They mixed up current events about missile strikes, drone strikes. They mixed in current events about women's rights as well, like feminist stuff like that. They mix all that stuff into it, like stuff that people are talking about on the internet right now, and things that happen in generally in the public and in the news going on. They do actually mix all that into the season. But overall, the overall theme of the first half of the Season 3 was about Russia and Frank, and I didn't really like that whole like United States versus Russia thing because I never saw Frank's end goal in that, and in the end, by halfway through the season, that thing was already over and Frank was still running for president even though he said he wasn't going to be running. And my thing with that whole Russia thing just felt so pointless, other than the fact that it actually did make a divide between Claire and Frank, which is going to come into play later on into the season. And I guess if that's what they were going for, it does work. But I just think overall watching all the episodes together, because that's what you kind of do with a show like this. When it's on Netflix, you can watch every single episode back to back instead of waiting every single week for a new episode to come out. I didn't feel like we were really all connected. I don't think the Russia thing was as important as it should have been promoted. So much time was spent to like Frank trying to kiss up to the Russian president, and I just don't really think they really should have added that so much to that in the actual show. I know the whole Jordan Valley thing was a big deal, but I still don't see, other than the political talking points for when they actually went to debate, when Frank actually was like, you know, trying to make sure that he was going to get the nomination to be, well, you know, one of the candidates to be next to be president on the Democratic Party, and whoever the Republicans pick, you know, we'll find out in, well, Season 4. Other than, you know, stuff to use as fuel for their campaigns, I really didn't see the point of that. Now, the M-Works thing that they did discuss throughout the whole season, I really did like that idea. I actually like how they played out with it. I thought that whole entire thing with the hurricane coming out of absolutely nowhere, and then the bill didn't have to get signed, and he had to get, you know, he had to sign this damn bill, and now, because he had to sign the M-Works bill, Frank basically just lost all his funding for M-Works. And now he's going to use it as a ploy to push his campaign. It's like, oh, we got 50,000 jobs in Washington. How many more jobs can I get when I'm president? I got funding for this for the whole entire United States. Okay, that's leverage. I'm okay with that. But really, like I said, the series all over was between the complexity between Claire and Frank. Because by the last episodes, big spoiler, Claire leaves Frank. Claire basically said, Frank, I'm done. And the episode just ended. That's it. Claire literally divorces Frank because Claire didn't feel like it was an equal partnership. And the reason why this happened is because I think the biggest influence of this was this guy who's writing a book. And I just didn't feel like the person that Frank picked to write the book was good in the first place. So the minute I saw this guy, I'm like, Frank, you're a calculating guy. You're a strategist. Like Season 1, Season 2. You really make people do what you want to do, but this guy's writing whatever he wants to write. You want a book out by January 1st, and he hasn't delivered yet. You need to fire this guy, get rid of him. If he says anything to the press, you need to fire him. But Frank was showing a lot of leniency, and that's one thing I was very weird about this season. Frank was not very assertive with anything to me. Like, he never really pushed anybody's button but his own wife. And I guess that's what they were trying to go for, because at the end, she ends up leaving Frank. We don't know if they're going to get back together in season 4. We don't really know what's going to happen, right? Because like I said, the last words in the episode of last episode of season 3 is basically Frank calling for Claire, basically, and you know, you could tell what he was trying to say. Claire, don't leave me. That's basically what he was saying. Because he just got, you know, he just know that he's about to be running for president now in 2016. Everything went good with the, you know, whole entire campaigning, and she quits. Now, overall, other than that, I think Doug's story was the most compelling over the series. The watching Doug come from being battered and bruised to hating his brother, then to loving his brother's family because his brother comes to help him, but Doug kind of like, you know, pushes his brother away. And in the later episode, he calls back his brother after he hires a hooker to squirt freaking alcohol in his mouth through a syringe. And I was like, oh my god, I don't like needles, and I don't like to see people use drugs. So stuff like that was just like, oh, please don't use drugs, dude. I really didn't want to see him do that. I'm glad he didn't go that way, but he's still an alcoholic, so that was kind of a bad thing of his own. Eventually, he gets help from his brother. He invites his brother to send him a picture of his family. And eventually, he invites the family over to his house. And the family is a family of hugging. And this really attached with me. Everybody came to the house, the little kids, the wife, all gave Doug a big hug. And he finally felt like he was a real person. Like, he was not like a big old robot. He had real emotions. And him connecting to people realistically really made me feel like he's developing as a character, and I like seeing that. You know, he ended up actually going to therapy, and he met this like cute little girl there who was a therapist, and I always thought they were flirting, and I really did always think it was flirting. I felt like she liked him, I felt like he liked her, but none of them would have pursued it in a professional manner because, well, she was basically, it was like a doctor-patient privilege. But eventually she quits, he goes to the party, and who knows, at the party she actually comes on to Doug, and I was like, oh yeah, Doug, get some. And I was just happy for my dude Doug, and I you know, that really got me happy. I'm like, yes, Doug could have a normal life. He doesn't have to be always so stressed out. And then Doug does something I wasn't expecting. He actually tries to help Dunbar. Now, if you guys don't know who Dunbar is, she was actually the guy trying to go after Frank in season 2. Basically, you know, trying to get him in trouble for all the stuff he was doing, you know, manipulating the law, and she was working with the Supreme Court and all that, blah, blah, blah. But now she's here, she's running, trying to be run for being president, so she's another candidate of the Democratic Party, from what I understand. Sorry if I mess up the parties, guys. Just like, it's so complicated with all this stuff, like legal speak. But, to the point, she's running now, and Doug actually goes to her and says, I want to work for you. He turns down the first offer. She makes another offer. He wants money from her family, because her family's rich as hell. And all this stuff is happening now. I'm like, Doug, why are you trying to betray on Frank? But at the same time, he seems like he's trying to help Frank. And it was such a well done from Doug's point of view, because at points I really wasn't sure if he was trying to get back at Frank for not hiring him back right away in episode 1, because I thought the minute that Doug was able to walk and speak, I thought Frank was going to bring him into office and have Doug handle everything. And I think if Doug was there from the beginning, Doug would have been helping Frank turn this thing around like that. Because on the last episode, Doug finally finds Rachel. Now, before he finds Rachel, you know, the guy that was the hacker who got arrested and now working for the FBI. You guys remember him from season 2. I don't specifically remember his name. What actually happened with him is the fact that Doug made him try to search for Rachel, and he falsified some paperwork saying that Rachel actually died in a ditch in some state. The reason for this, he wanted Doug to lift the passport lock that the FBI has put on his passport so he could actually fly out of the country. He flew to Venezuela. And in the last episode, Doug basically finds out, like, you know, it was all a scam because this hacker was stupid and actually contacted Doug. And Doug was not happy about this. And it just seemed like after he met his family, after he got himself cleaned up, he went months without using any alcohol. He cleaned himself up. He was in the right state of mind. He wasn't having emotional swings anymore. And that just all made him the man he needed to be for that last episode. The last episode comes, he goes ahead and finds the hacker in Venezuela. And he first of all, I have to say this. I'm going to give you, I forgot to mention this. Doug is still working with Dunbar, right? So Doug shows Dunbar the letter that, basically the journal that Claire says she wanted to be destroyed, proving that she didn't really have an abortion of season 2 when she got into the incident with that general. So Doug shows that to Dunbar as here's a bargaining piece, give me $2 million for this. But then at the last second, Underwood finds about this, calls Doug. Doug goes to the Oval Office and he burns the page. So now, there you go, Frank Underwood on the phone telling Dunbar, F you. And I was like, oh snap, it just got real. Doug is back. He's in the right position. He goes and contacts the head of FBI, tells him, if you don't give me information about this hacker in Venezuela, I'm gonna go ahead and replace you in office because I work for the president now. Like, that's the Doug I know, man. No spinning around it. You don't get what I want. I'm gonna replace you. I get shit done because that's what I want to see from Doug. That's what I want to see from Frank. I like when they're assertive about what they want to do. I like when Doug. I like when Claire. I like when they're assertive. They're like, I'm gonna do this because I want to do this, and this is gonna get done. Doug, crouching with a cane, goes to Venezuela and beat this dude's up. Like, yo, this dude is limping and he's still a badass. And then after he beats this dude up, he throws his cane in the ocean like, I'm the man, bro. I got this now. Goes back for the last episode, hunt down Rachel. He meets Rachel. Rachel gives him the whole spiel. You see how Rachel has been living over the last, months and everything. And, she basically turned around a new leaf. But Doug was able to find her. This hacker was able to find her. And that's the problem. She's still linked to all the bad stuff that, Frank Underwood did before. Now, here's the issue. Doug does actually have feelings for this girl. And I was like, man, I want him to let her go. She's a new person now. She's trying to save her life. And he does let her go. But after driving their separate way, all you see is a car turning around, Doug digging the grave, and there's a body in it. Can't see her full face, but it looks like Doug actually went back and actually finished the job. It feels like he just you know what? He went back to Underwood and said, I took care of it. It's behind us now. Let's move forward. Now, at that point, I'm like, everything's okay, going forward, good. I mean, Frank's trying to get back on his role. He won everything. But Claire is missing from all this picture because Claire is staying home, watching the election on the TV instead of helping campaigning with Frank. And here comes the last episode. Frank is talking about the guy who's writing the book. Claire's talking about the guy who's writing the book. And, she ends up leaving him. And that's what I think the biggest and the worst part about the season was, the book. That whole entire guy with the book. I never liked him since the minute I saw him. I just felt like, why would Frank do this? This is if you wanted somebody to write a book for him for AbWorks, he could have picked somebody better. This guy was a fictional art. This is not the person I would have think Frank Underwood would have wanted to pick, but this guy just wants to know about your life story. He's a leech. He's one of those guys. He was sleeping with the reporter. Like, all that type of stuff, Frank should just fire him the minute that happened. That's what I would have expected from Frank in season 1 or season 2. But Frank lets it go. And I think that Frank lets a lot of stuff go in this season. He had the Russian president pushing him around, made him, kick his wife out of office of the UN embassy. All that type of stuff. All that stuff I didn't like. He was not very assertive as much as I thought he would be as president. I feel like he really was a weak president. And that is what I just didn't like about this season. I felt like Frank was a stronger man in season 1 and season 2. I think Doug was a great character. I think Claire was a great character. But I think Frank they did not give him the power I felt he should have had as president. He did not make that big of moves. He didn't really accomplish nothing. And that was kind of the big part of the whole entire, season. I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose, but it didn't really make me like the show more because he didn't accomplish anything. It made me like it less. I want to see Frank succeed. And maybe that's just me as a person I want to see. Be watching it from the season 1. But that's just my thoughts on, House of Cards, season 3. Beaky here with the Untitled Game Show. Hope you guys like my opinions. It's a new thing for me. I usually don't talk about TV shows on the channel. If you guys like it and want to see more TV show discussions, let me know in the comment section below. Are you guys excited for Season 4? I sure am, and I can't wait to watch other stuff like Walking Dead. I haven't even seen a new episode of Walking Dead. I actually want to see Game of Thrones whenever the hell that comes back on. And a great show to start watching right now, guys, is Better Call Saul, which is a spin-off show from the Breaking Bad series. Alright, guys, that show is absolutely hilarious. It's not a series as Breaking Bad. It's kind of, I guess the genre will be comedy and drama, and I really do enjoy that mixed together. Peace out, guys. Thanks for watching.